Okay, so I'm gonna review Avenged Sevenfold, and this is their 2010 album, Nightmare. So with this is more of hard rock and metal versus new metal that I usually or have been reviewing. And I know some of these is kind of, once about 2006, 2007 or so hit, a lot of new metal artists started to go in different directions. Now, there were, not that they have to do with it, but there were bands that kind of had some sort of sound that came out 2005 or so, once rock kind of started to shift. Now, the details of that kind of show because I don't necessarily know the classic albums between like 2005 and 2010. So around that period where rock had its fire, and around that period where rock went through different things. I mean, we had Kid Rock changing a bunch of folks. So it was interesting. I think this is one of the bands that caught a lot of steam between those years. So with that, this album was actually one of their largest, and it had 4 singles, and all 4 of those songs hit like the top 2 of the rock charts in America. Now, they are not as ferocious as something like Slipknot or Mudvayne or things that I've reviewed, but they do have a good approach at making rock singles. And that's the thing, is I'm not sure what the face of rock music was around this time, but the fact that they were number 1 means that a bunch of other bands were not. So that's the thing. I don't know how long their streak lasted, but I'm interested in knowing what were the hits around this time. So they did have 4, and Nightmare is an extremely good one. Buried Alive is a more kind of post-grunge sounding song, which they pulled off pretty well, but they do it a bunch more on this album, and it doesn't work out as good. So it has to me, a post-grunge song that has more of like a mellow guitar to it, or how those Creed type songs that you hear. To me, it has to, or Puddle of Mud, it has to be haunting. That's really the thing about it, is if it has that shrill and kind of dark feel to it, that makes post-grunge that much more sharp, is when that sort of thing happens. But if it's just like, a pat on the back or something, it loses some of its appeal. There are kind of more ballad type, mellower songs on this release, and there's at least 3 or 4 of them out of 10 or 11 songs. So there are songs like Danger Line, Natural Born Killer, that are really, fierce. And they kind of remind me of Disturbed. That's kind of the way it feels, is they do get pretty rowdy, but, some of the kings would be like Slipknot of that, and they're pretty close. But they, like I said, they do have the single aspect of it down. And I think when they drop their next album, it should hit, but I'm hoping it does. So the 6 songs that you need to hear are Nightmare, Welcome to the Family, Danger Line, Buried Alive, Natural Born Killer, and God Hates Us. Now, all of these, the thing is to have an appreciation for rock. Depending upon what you listen to, it might change, but I'm starting to realize that there's a style of rock for a lot of different types of people. So I'm not really sure what to categorize this type. I mean, to me it is metal, but it's not, I don't know, I guess that would be by more design more so than that. So yeah, it's kind of tricky describing it. I mean, this is metal. Most people probably won't notice, but I guess the only thing is it's not as ferocious as some of the other ones. But it's not so much a huge complaint as much as it is an observation. So, but yeah, I mean, this, you know, the fact that they have 4 singles and you can listen to it and enjoy it, you know, you get to the meat of the album. There are songs to listen to, but I do think this album was pretty much a success. It did go gold, and yeah, so the problem with why this review is so much in air is because I have not really listened to much records around this time, so I don't know what was really on top of the charts around this to describe it and compare it to anything. But as far as like a first attempt, you know, this is what I thought of it. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10, a 6 out of 11. That's a little bit more than half. Social score, I'll give it an 8 because there were 4 singles that charted high, and there's some album cuts in here that are really good. And the only other thing is, that means how well it plays around your friends. And yeah, the future, they're working on music. And last thing is can this record be topped? And I think the answer is it could. I wasn't feeling all the softer songs, but you know, they do, when they get down to business, they do it well. So 6 out of 10, 8 social. Subscribe for more fun.